What's up out there? Welcome back to some more Melvor Idle Atlas of Discovery. Now, I woke up, and probably many of you saw this as well, to a post on Steam, or was it Reddit or something like that? I saw a post somewhere that the news is on Steam anyway. So there's a post up here that is some upcoming changes to the Atlas of Discovery. These are not implemented yet, and these are probably all subject to change. But I wanted to run through this real quickly and just put my thoughts on the whole thing. So first and foremost, they start off and they talk about being blown away by the amount of feedback and everything they get. I know these people watch, for sure they're on Discord, Reddit, and Twitter. So they pay attention to all of that. And what this boils down to is that they've been monitoring all of that. And they say, what we've seen is that the Atlas of Discovery requires quite a lot of adjustments to get it to the point where it becomes a viable choice of content throughout someone's 1 through 99 journey, and it should also provide some use after you're done with it. Now, for me, I understand what they're getting at with a lot of this. I didn't really notice it because I came at this from a completion account, so it was just mop up on the expansion, and that was that. Now, coming at it from a different direction, there's definitely, I can understand what's going on with this, and I haven't started a character from scratch, so I don't necessarily know how all this would work, but I can definitely understand the points here. So, the preface says, this announcement details upcoming changes to Atlas of Discovery in bold print. These changes are not yet released, and there is not an exact ETA on when this update will be released. So they're breaking this down into barrier, archaeology, and cartography so you can see what's being changed or added. And it says it's important to note that every pain point we've seen will not be addressed with this update. It may take a few updates to get right. However, we hope these initial adjustments to Atlas of Discovery are a step in the right direction. So there are some pretty significant changes here. And the interesting thing is, when we got Township, everybody knew there was some immediate problems with Township that needed to be solved. And I think they thought everything was in a good place. And they probably thought this was all in a good place too, and this doesn't necessarily feel bad. It just feels like it's more of an adjustment. And they're adding a bunch of stuff too. This isn't just nerfing certain things or buffing certain things. They're adding stuff. I think this is really cool. So barrier. This mechanic is by far the largest topic of discussion and requires the most attention in terms of changes and adjustments to bring it in line with the progression we want to see during someone's playthrough. Notable feedback we are addressing. This is the bullet points of what they're trying to fix. This is not what they are doing. This is what they're trying to address. So barrier combat is unrewarding. It's more beneficial to outlevel the rewards than to invest in upgrading barrier-specific items. This renders the whole barrier combat mechanic redundant, as you can simply bypass it for better results. Now, I don't know what they mean by that, unless they're talking about just getting stronger summoning tablets and not upgrading the gear, which, okay, I guess. I don't disagree with that. I mean, I blew through it with all the Necromancer's Palace stuff, so it is what it is. Barrier mechanic feels bad with summoning attacks fixed at a 3-second interval. You often deal no damage to the barrier if accuracy is low. On top of this, barrier regenerates, which makes the fight last much longer. Overly grindy nature of upgrading. The barrier combat mechanic requires an excessive grind to upgrade gear effectively, especially when the main item to upgrade, which is barrier gems, only comes from a single source and has limited availability. Yeah, I mean, there's so much gear to upgrade, it takes forever to get the stuff put in. That's why I forgot about it, to be honest with you. And then once I started upgrading, I'm like, good God, this stuff takes forever. There are slow kill times. Attempting to approach AOD combat without using Throne of the Herald gear leads to incredibly slow kill times and very long grinds to obtain upgrades. Yeah, I can see that, but when you do upgrade the AOD gear, it is much better, and it's not that bad of an experience. It is a hell of a lot faster with the Throne of the Herald gear, but it's not that bad necessarily with AOD. It needs tweaked. I mean, I guess it needs tweaked, but I did a combat primer video if you haven't seen that, and basically your DPS doubles or almost triples at some point with the Throne of the Herald gear. So yeah, I mean, you can definitely up it a lot with Throne of the Herald stuff, but the active Atlas of Discovery gear wasn't terrible. It just wasn't as high performing as that. So what's being changed? This is what they're actually looking at doing. Adjustments to barrier regeneration. This mechanic is important to retain, but the monsters that have barrier regeneration should be reduced. Early to mid-game monsters will no longer have barrier regen. The iconic cave, mucky cave, tree overgrowth, collapse city, golem territory, and unholy forest. So no barrier regen there. Every time a monster regenerates a barrier, they will receive a stacking debuff, which applies a slow and also reduces their accuracy and evasion. One stack is applied for regen, up to a maximum of 5 stacks. Monsters with barrier regen will now display it as a passive. So, good changes there. Lessening the grind of barrier items and gear upgrades. Now, this is one that I felt, because even with full completion account, all the bonuses and stuff, like this was super grindy. There are changes to Archaeology below that will also help with this grind. We'll get to that. They are increasing the drop rates of various high-level barrier items. Monsters with barrier now drop barrier dust on death like bones. The amount of barrier dust drop scales with the monster's maximum barrier value and can also be doubled. So that's cool. Barrier dust is kind of a pain in the ass to get. Granite Golem will now drop imbued bronze bars. Range Golem will drop imbued steel. Earth Golem will drop imbued mithril. Magic Golem will drop imbued mithril, adamantite, and runite bars. Golem chest from Golem territory will now drop imbued bars instead of generic bars. And ritual chest from Cult Grounds will now also drop imbued runite and dragonite bars. So I like all of that. That's probably how it should have been to begin with. Instead of just getting crap from the base game, you should probably get stuff from the expansion. I mean, that only makes sense. And that lessens the grind of having to create everything. Now, they're also introducing summoning attack interval reduction. There will be 3 new items you can obtain via Atlas of Discovery content that will reduce summoning attack interval, a ring, offhand, and a consumable. With all 3 equipped, you can achieve minus 25% summoning attack interval. So that speeds it up pretty substantially. Increasing late game barrier damage. We're introducing barrier and crystal upgrades for all god gear except gloves. So the barrier upgraded god gear will provide a massive increase in barrier damage. Each god piece will provide plus 40% summoning familiar damage as extra damage, a total of 160% with all the gear equipped. Upgraded god gear. So they're adding god gear. That just dawned on me. We have ancient gear right now, so they're actually adding another. Yeah, okay. Cost to upgrade is the same as ancient gear using the base god item. When I looked at this earlier, I didn't think about it, but yeah, that makes sense too. That should have been in the game. I mean, you upgrade the god gear to something a little better. Obtainable if you can complete god dungeons plus Cult Grounds dungeon. Cool. I like that. I like that a lot. Like when I read this morning, I was half awake and I wasn't really paying attention. I thought, okay, they're upping the damage on some gear, but it didn't dawn on me that they're talking about god gear, which we don't have an upgrade for now. You just use the ancient gear and that's it. The addition of more gear to upgrade means more resources to grind for, but we've added these resources to other areas of the game to assist. As mentioned above, we have more barrier dust and imbued bar drops around the game. Note, imbued dragonite bars are more plentiful as well. Ritual chests from Cult Ground dungeons now also contain barrier exalted shards and siphoning barrier gems. That's cool because some of the, I kind of expected to find some of those gems and stuff, are more of it in the archaeology segment. I think it was all combat that we got it. Making barrier content more rewarding. There's quite a few changes and new content we're adding in the hopes of make barrier content more appealing for general progression. Summoning XP. This is going to be huge. Summoning XP received per damage to barrier is increased from 0.45 to 0.67 per damage dealt. That's going to be a nice big update because as you grind all that barrier monsters away, that's a lot of extra summoning XP. I mean, you're going to get a lot of XP from it anyway, but that's a decent chunk extra over a long period of time, but it's a decent chunk. New gems for the gem slot. This is one I thought was really cool too, because I'm looking forward to what we can do with those gems in Throne of the Herald, because we've never had that before, and it's not something that replaces, like in your passive slot, you're not replacing it with a different ring. You know what I mean? Like for the longest time, you're going to run the Fury of the Elemental Zodiacs, And that's like the only amulet you're going to put. If you switch it out to something else, you lose all of that. And that's like the best amulet in the game. And it only goes on the amulet slot. Whereas like with the passive, you can swap that out. So if you had some other amulet, it's tough to want to change that one out to something else, especially if it does, if you have to swap one amulet for another. With these gems, there's nothing been like this been in the game at all. So this is like a totally extra buff on top of whatever else you've got. Now, new gems for the gem slot. Utilizing the gem slot allows us to add more content to the game that provide a positive bonus to your character without needing to remove an existing item in a different slot, which is just what I was saying. These gems are designed to assist in various non-AOD content. Reduced hit point gem. Enemy has minus 3% maximum hit points. This one comes from the Cult Grounds chest. So these are all dungeons. Yeah. Combat doubling gem, plus 3% chance to double items in combat. Max hit point gem, plus 20 max hit points. Slayer gem, plus 3% Slayer coin, plus 5% damage dealt to Slayer task monsters. That'd be cool. Dungeon gem, basically the same thing, 5% damage to dungeon monsters, plus 5% to dungeon monsters. And then a combat gem, plus 5% damage to combat area monsters. So that's cool there. We've also added the combination gem, which is an upgrade to all of the above. This new gem combines all of the above bonuses into a single gem. It's designed for very late game with the requirements that are set. So that means it's going to suck to get, but it's going to give you all this stuff so you don't have to keep swapping them out. Other existing barrier gear will most likely get a damage buff, especially through the early game. We're also adding your barrier damage value to the combat UI so you can see how your barrier modifiers are affected your damage output. That's cool. That'll be great. We move on to Archaeology. There's a few key pain points that they want to address with this update. So again, they have the section with what they're trying to fix. They say there's too much junk. Archaeology has too many items that provide zero use other than to sell. This feels bad and clogs up the bank space. Now, I don't know why they didn't, like, you've got that junk from fishing spell in alt magic. I don't know why they didn't just do that with this or add that to that thing there, because it already exists. And then that archaeology is too slow. The high base interval and lack of interval reduction makes the skill feel like a slog. Yeah, I can see that. What's being changed? Faster progression. Base archaeology interval is being reduced to 4 seconds down from 5, which is pretty big. Pretty substantial change there. And we've also added a new consumable that further reduces archaeology by minus 10%. Which I was kind of surprised that we don't have like summoning tablets for it, or we don't have potions. We don't have consumables from Township. Like, they left a lot of things out, and that goes for Cartography too. There was not a lot of that added, and all those things have been in the game for a very long time. So I was kind of shocked that we didn't get extra stuff for that. Like, the only summoning tablet we got was for combat. You know what I mean? Like, I felt kind of odd. So, providing use for junk. We're adding a brand new mechanic to the Grand Museum of Melvor where you can donate all your junk with a single click. Now, this seems cool too. So, the alt magic thing would have been kind of cool, but this seems like equally good and maybe better. Well, probably a lot better. Any item from Archaeology that has no use outside of selling will be classified as generic artifact, which will be donated with a single click. Locked items don't get donated. These museum tokens can then be taken to the shop to exchange for the below items and packs. These items will have an Archaeology level and artifact donation count requirement. So, the little spyglass we get can be enhanced. The enhanced spyglass lens allows you to upgrade the old spyglass to the enhanced one, significantly increasing the survey and sight range. Travel tokens, minus 10% travel costs in Cartography. Archaeologist consumable, minus 10% archaeology interval. That's where that thing comes from. Dig site tokens, plus 6% archaeology skill XP. That's cool. I think that'll be nice. Summoner skill pack 1, 2, and 3. These provide different shards and stuff like that. I think that's a really cool way to do that because we have no other way of making shard or getting shards at all. I think this is great. Combat supply. These are basically like the Slayer supplies in the Slayer thing. You're going to get some javelins, some runes. Actually, this gives you chaos, death, and blood, plus big bones, magic bones, ancient runes, and the final one giving you magic bones. Blood runes, ancient runes. Yeah. So quite a bit of different stuff in those packs. Then there's topaz bolts. You can now purchase directly from enchanted topaz bolts, enchanted sapphire, and enchanted diamond bolts. You can now purchase those from the shop. And then we'll continue to monitor the selection of items available for exchanging museum tokens. Well, you know what I would love to see is something to get runes, like straight up runes, like a rune shop or something like that. Like, it's great that we can get chaos, death, and blood runes out of this. That's fine. But I would love to see the ability to get like air, fire, water, stuff like that. Maybe something that comes in. A township would be a great source for that. You build a rune shop in there and you can start buying the stuff out or funneling it out. Thinking along the lines of something like hardcore or something like that. Maybe not hardcore, but and I know hardcore combat only kind of doesn't do that because you lose the skills or lose. Yeah, you don't have non-combat skills in hardcore combat only. But it'd be kind of nice to have some other routes to get runes. Because like we now have this with summoner stuff. I know the shards only come from the shop and all that, but it'd be nice to have alternate routes for a lot of the different stuff that you can buy in the shop. Anyway, total aside. Cartography. The changes to this skill will seem minimal compared to the rest, but the idea is that the changes listed above will make cartography more appealing to progress in. Notable feedback they are addressing is that it is too expensive, and that's a no-brainer. That one, it costs a lot. I don't notice the cost with my 12 billion gold that constantly goes up because my township's fully leveled. But when I look at clicking on it and laugh at the 3 million gold that it just cost me, I'm like, yeah, whatever. If I was starting over, yeah, I'd be like, dude, I can't travel anywhere. So what they're changing is cheaper traveling. They're significantly reducing the base travel costs across the board. Reduced base travel costs by 75% for hexes up to level 59 cartography. Reduce base travel costs by 50% for hexes up to level 60 through 99 cartography, and then reduce base travel costs by 25% for hexes up to level 100 plus cartography. We also understand that there is feedback regarding auto survey mechanic and just wanted to let you know that we see it. Update doesn't address it, blah, blah, blah. Conclusion, thank you again for what you're doing, doing what you do best and providing feedback. In other words, you're bitching a lot, so we can provide the content made available to you. We hope this first update is a step in the right direction in improving the mechanics around Atlas of Discovery. We'll continue to monitor feedback, yada, yada, yada. I'll have an update soon. When to expect this drop? I love the amount of updates that this is getting. And this has been throughout the entire development process of Melvor Idle. They may not do things right way all the time, but they definitely listen to feedback and they definitely address things. It may take a little bit, like Township took a while to get sorted out. And I think it was because it was very divisive and nobody really knew what they wanted out of Township. They just knew they didn't want what they had. That's been the worst one. All the rest of them have been very well received or, minor updates here and there. But this is probably the biggest change they've done to an update. I don't remember them doing anything like this for Throne of the Herald. I know when we got Township, it changed in a pretty drastic fashion, but this seems pretty big compared to all the other stuff. So there's a lot of nice stuff in here. And I mean, that's not knocking it at all. I like the Atlas of Discovery expansion. I thought it was a mid-level expansion. I don't think it's the greatest thing ever. I think Throne of the Herald really blows it away because you've got that very in-game content, all the 120 stuff and all the cool stuff. I think this one's got a lot of potential, but I think this one needs to be ran from the bottom up, whereas like Throne of the Herald started at the end. And I'm kind of mixed on like this one not starting at level 100, you know what I mean, like Throne of the Herald did. So anyway, big changes coming. We don't know when, but we got something to look forward to. That will do it for this video. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.